In retrospect, you kind of look at the player he is and you go, wow, he's quality.
The Liverpool curse.
The Liverpool curse.
As a United
they're in
fan,
all of them.
Yeah, as a United fan,
that is,
as a United manager, you lose to Liverpool.
Wow.
And I think it does something to the ego.
Like, I reckon they've got like a water break coach or something. Like,
By the way,
someone who like,
going, it will be, that will be the case.
He's scoring and assisting goals on a freakish level, and like the actual quality of the action is ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll give Ten Hag the best opportunity to succeed. Yeah. If things don't go his way, can we still have players that are fairly serviceable?
This game, from minute one, felt like there was no clear tactical idea of how to play against that Spurs team. Hello everyone, my name is Harrison and welcome to the first episode of the Overlap Breakdown podcast, where we cover everything tactics and numbers. And I'm joined today with my good friend Umir, who's a professional scout and analyst. And we're about to get into everything you need to know about the Premier League's action this week. Right, starting off with, unfortunately, the worst result of the weekend for me, which was Manchester United 0, Tottenham 3. Yeah, not a pretty one. To give you some pretty damning stats, Manchester United conceded nearly 5 expected goals, which is the most a Premier League team has conceded in the league this season, and the most by an away team since 2022, with Norwich City against Manchester City. And that just kind of paints a picture of what's happening right now at Manchester United Football Club, and the early optimism with the signings and the board owners coming in and a shake-up in terms of the structure. We're now looking at a pretty stark comparison already early doors in the season, having played 6 games. And me and you both watched the game, and I thought, for me, I've always wanted to get back behind Ten Hag. I think he deserved a bit more of a better backing in terms of the structure of the club. And you could say that last season he was riddled with injuries, and you could have excused certain things. But for me yesterday, that was his worst game as a man. Objectively speaking, in terms of how we approached the game,
it's up there.
That was one of the worst games I've seen under him.
I think, if you think about worst games, you think about the Liverpool game, just for stature. We were speaking a little bit prior to this about, in the big games, it's almost the losing against sort of top 6 sides that will harm your reputation as a manager for a team like Man United, because you've got the expectations, you've still got the idea that you can beat teams. I think on paper, a lot of United fans were fairly optimistic because of the way that Spurs play. You know, they're fairly aggressive, fairly attacking, they play with a high line, and on paper you've got a United team that should be able to play in a counter-attack fashion, push past that last line, got quick attackers, Rashford, etc. So on paper, I thought, because the expectations from United fans in particular was fairly high, to lose in such a definitive manner, it was proper. I don't know. I think it really stuck for United fans in particular.
I thought it was like one of the things that I'm really upset about in terms of the way we played was that we almost played like Spurs played a style that they'd never played before, and that they come out and they did something that was like just for example, the Wolves and Liverpool game. Right, Liverpool won 2-1. It was a narrow game. Neither side really played well. Wolves played a completely different style to how they played the entire season, and that probably stifled Liverpool in terms of their ability to play through the game, because you've got to think of your feet. Wolves are trying to play out from the back. Spurs' centre halves are stood on the edge of the centre circle, playing between them with one sitting midfielder, full-backs inside, wingers high and wide.
Which it's the same. The Ange blueprint.
It's been
not even here. It's
the same style. And I think Erik Ten Hag hasn't beat Ange in 4 games now.
Wow.
So I just think it was Ten Hag's weakest tactical game. I think the 7-0 is up there in terms of the way we've conceded, but in the way we lost the game. And I think that was more of a player performance. I think there was a lot of things going on the pitch and a lot of individuals that kind of ducked down and let it happen. This game, from minute 1, felt like there was no clear tactical idea of how to play against that Spurs team, even though everyone knows how they play, not how to play against them, but everyone knows what they're going to do, and you can try and work out for yourself how you want to counter it. You didn't play. He played in a mid block, just completely no pressure on the ball at home against a big 6 side who haven't started the season remarkably at all. Went down to 10 men against Karabag by losing the ball in them high build-up situations. But we decided to put no pressure on the ball, leave the gaps open, and it's just one of them things. I'm really upset with it, because I just thought it was one of them performances where Erik Ten Hag's had a few of these games where you play against a big 6 opposition, you beat them, And then next thing you know, everyone's singing and dancing about how good we've been.
Yeah, but I think it's important to establish the difference between like a good result and like setting your team up in a good way. I think I've always said, if you're a manager, a good performance is giving your team the best chance to create big chances and then stifling the opposition's ability to create good chances. I think what we saw yesterday was very minimal threat from United going forward in general.
Nothing.
From like a systematic point of view, you're not creating much. And then on the other end, you've got Spurs with like so many solutions to get in. First around United's pressure. Obviously, you're saying United set up in the sort of mid block, but I think they were forced to set up in the mid block because their initial pressure was bypassed super easily. They had the front two, and they were kind of spread apart. I think United, what we've seen from them, has been very personnel based this season. So when you've had the likes of Mount and Bruno, for example, in the front two in the first couple of games, the way that they apply that pressure, suddenly the press looks brilliant.
Yeah. They're the press.
Yeah.
It's not the way the press is set up in terms of you know, shape and stuff. Yeah. It's just having the legs in the forward line. And I think that's kind of the thing with Manchester United. I've always kind of said this, but I think to do this in season 3, I think United fans would have expected it in season 1, in season 2, even maybe against your Cities and your Arsenals. Season 3, and then I'm going to tell you as well, the only players in the entire Manchester United squad that weren't Ten Hag bought players were Tom Heaton, Victor Lindelof, Bruno Fernandes, Diogo Dalot, Diallo and Rashford. And Fernandes, Diogo Dalot and Rashford were all given contract extensions under Erik Ten Hag. So meaning the only players that you could say Erik Ten Hag doesn't have available to him who he hasn't bought, or maybe he doesn't want in the squad, are Tom Heaton, Victor Lindelof and Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo's probably been one of United's best players this season, and Tom Heaton's a third choice keeper and Victor Lindelof is a fifth choice centre half. This is not good. It's not good enough.
They tried to move Lindelof on as well.
Yeah, they tried to move Lindelof on, but there's wage problems. To play like that in season 3, with £610 million spent.
And by the way, the signings, like I could forgive it a little bit if the signings were very board-led, for example. But the signings that United have done,
look like,
well, they're very much like the ex-Ten Hag players, like a fair few of them as well.
Yeah.
So
they said there was a lot of stuff in the summer window that Dan Ashworth and a few of the other board members were speaking about, basically saying that they weren't Ten Hag signings and that maybe he had a say on them. He had a say yes or no. Yeah. But apparently these signings were thought of outside of Erik Ten Hag, and I don't believe that.
I partly agree. I think what the rationale would have been these are players that work for Ten Hag, but if Ten Hag were to go, they potentially could fit into sort of a traditional
United
high possession,
team.
United team, or just sort of like a traditional sort of your Tuchels, your Peps, your Arteta's kind of system. Euro, for example, probably fits into that. Ugarte is maybe more in the mould of a Ten Hag player, for example, but if you need him to play sort of at the base of a sort of pivot in a 3-2-5 shape, you could in a positional system, because he's done it a bit for PSG. Obviously, I don't think he's the best player there. But I think they probably try to find a middle ground, knowing that, look, if things don't go, we'll give Ten Hag the best opportunity to succeed. Yeah. If things don't go his way, can we still have players that are fairly serviceable? And I think the way that United is playing with these new players in, I mean, wasn't it just Shaw who was out in terms of injury?
Yeah, so this is another thing as well. We've got... He's currently talking a lot about trying to bring people back in from injuries and trying to freshen the squad up in terms of like tracking the progress back from injury. So I think Højlund started off the season with an injury. Ugarte wasn't fully fit when we bought him, kind of thing. Matthias Stillett didn't start when he come in. But Luke Shaw is now the only player for Manchester United who's currently unavailable. Maguire was unavailable yesterday for an injury, but he probably wasn't going to start the game anyway.
They preferred the late.
So Luke Shaw is the only one, and we were saying this, but Manchester United currently, even though the FC 20 games and Palace games weren't victories, they drew both games, there was signs in them games that Manchester United were trying something different.
Certainly Palace first half.
Yeah, Palace first half. So what they're trying to do is bring Diogo Dalot inside permanently next to a player like Eriksen, who me and you have spoke about as being kind of the heartbeat.
I really liked Eriksen's performances. You know, aside
from the fact that I'm not going to say he can't run, because I do think he can cover distance. I just don't think he's fast. And I think in a team of United's chaos.
Yeah.
You need to be fast.
But when he does play, he brings in the sort of like control and reverse the tempo, where he doesn't need to be as fast as when you're playing with the likes of Casemiro, Mount, etc.
He was at fault for the goal against
I was
FC20,
going to say that was the only,
which is probably the reason. I don't know whether or not he was going to play in this game, considering the midfield three that he went for. But if there was a way to drop him, he probably would have dropped him in that. But I think if Erik ten Hag wants to get control over games, he's doing certain things to get control, which is bringing Diogo Dalot inside. He clearly hates the fact that in about his last 12 months as United manager, he's not had a left-footed left back and a right-footed right back, and I think he really hates that idea because he likes his fullbacks to be able to do everything. Yeah. But it's took him this long to now think of a solution where it's like, right, we're going to go Diogo Dalot permanently in midfield with a back three behind him, so we can give a bit more stability and we can get on the ball a bit more and put him next to Eriksen. And that just went out the window against Spurs, which is crazy to me because every single United fan come out of the Palace away game thinking, right, we drew the game 0-0, but we created loads of chances. Diogo Dalot was probably our best player in that game with Eriksen. Yeah. We didn't ever really struggle to break through the press, kind of stamp past. That's a game that Manchester United traditionally, in the past few seasons, go to. Yeah. Struggle to get hold of the ball, struggle to compose themselves. We found a way around it. FC20 was self-inflicted.
The thing is, I think with both of those games, the opposition and how they set up plays partly into it, in the sense that I think in the first half,
Spurs would press a lot higher.
Yes, Spurs would press a lot higher. Yeah. The Palace game, the way that they set up, they had two players in behind their striker. Yeah. So it was almost like a 5-4-1, but the two wide players were narrow. Yeah. And they would be tasked with pressing the wide centre backs of Man United. They didn't jump out quick enough. So then the ball out to Eriksen, floating into that left back position, was on. They kind of went into more of a mid-block second half. And then United Ten Hag made all those subs. Yeah. You know, you changed the momentum of the game. Twente set up in this mid-block fairly sort of centrally compact from the start. And then United struggled. They had a good system, good sort of ability to dominate possession, etc. But they struggled a little bit against a mid-block system. So there are still those sticking points and questions to ask, even in games that they've played well in. I think just having your system and your sort of game model change so vastly depending on who actually plays. I'm all for adapting it to the player quality. Yeah.
Adaptability's fine. Yeah, adaptability's fine, but I think it gets to a point where if you're chasing Champions League football, your players have to know what they're going to do when they step out on the pitch. Yeah. I think if you're going to make a change, it kind of has to be a change that's a big change and you stick with the change. Especially when you're competing at these top levels. Arsenal, City, Chelsea now, Tottenham, Villa all have like identifiable footballing styles where the tweaks they make in game to game aren't drastic from going from one end of the pitch to the other. We're going to try and, I think Joe Linton, for example, against Manchester City was defending as like a left wing back to try and cover Bernardo.
He dropped into
so like
five,
them little tweaks so it's like a right-sided overload for Manchester City. Eddie Howe was like, right, we're going to compact that side, drop someone in. That is completely fine. But what we're seeing with Ten Hag,
the principles are the same.
Yeah, everything
you're still
is
high
the same.
Pressing for Newcastle.
The style is the same, and there's just little tweaks on top of it. Arteta's really good at it. Pep's really good at it. Eddie Howe's really good at it. Unai Emery's probably the best at it. Right, so it begs the question, after a really poor result for Manchester United, is basically what's next for them. I've took it upon myself to look at the last 5 games or the last 6 games of the last 2 managers to see how bad it got for them prior to their sacking and basically see whether or not Erik ten Hag is in the conversation, if at all under pressure, because after that game yesterday, I think a lot of people have kind of thought, right, we've done enough kind of thing. The conversations are there to be had. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his last 6 games as Manchester United manager won 1, drew 1 and lost 4. And the 4 losses were against Leicester away, Liverpool at home, City at home and Watford away. Jose Mourinho's last 6 games was 1 win, 3 draws and 2 losses, with the 2 losses coming against Liverpool and Manchester City, both away. Which is actually, when you look at it,
I mean, you expected to lose those games.
You expected to lose those games as United. And then under Erik ten Hag, his last 7 games, 2 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses, with the 3 losses coming at Brighton, Spurs and Liverpool, with the 2 games against the Big Six being at home.
Do you know what? The Liverpool curse.
The Liverpool curse.
As a United
in
fan,
all of them.
Yeah, as a United fan,
That is
as a United manager, you lose to Liverpool.
Wow.
And I think it does something to the ego.
I wonder when the away game is.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
didn't realise that when I was doing that. They're on every one of them, aren't they?
because obviously we were talking a little bit about sort of the top 6
They're
games.
like the nail in the coffin, aren't
they?
they?
I think if you just think back to all of those games as well, you lose to Liverpool, and it's just like, as a United fan, as sort of part of the United hierarchy, I assume, look, this is the team that we're supposed to be competing with historically.
The big 6 factor is definitely a thing here where Manchester United managers do come under pressure. Under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his last 6 games, there was 3 big 6 teams within them 6 games.
Yeah.
Under Jose Mourinho's last 6 games, there was 3 big 6 teams in them games. And in this current run for Erik ten Hag, there is only 2 big 6 teams. But coming up in their next 5 games is Porto away, Villa away, Brentford at home, Fenerbahce away, which is Jose Mourinho reunited with Fred and Amrabat.
I need him to stay until then.
And then West Ham away.
Last game, I'll be honest. I want all managers to succeed as a tactical mind.
That is
for
rough.
The showdown,
that is rough.
That's proper, isn't it?
The Villa away game is an interesting one. It's the game before the next international break, which, if a club was going to make an erratic decision, it would probably be then. I think that would probably be too early, even if he is to lose both games. I think it probably would be a bit of a trigger-happy decision. Yeah. But most managers do get let go when the club needs 2 weeks to kind of sort something out. Yeah. Whether or not that will be the time, but there is 4 away games in Manchester United's next 5 games, with the only home game being against Brentford, and a few of the away games being Porto, West Ham, Villa, and Fenerbahce.
You have to get a result at West Ham.
West Ham is a kind of a must not. Yeah, no, you have to win. You have to win.
Given their form.
But I think Villa have got Bayern Munich in the midweek at home.
Yeah.
So if they lose that game, that'll be the first time in quite a while that Unai Emery's Villa has gone 2 games without a win, and they'll be pumped up at Villa Park.
Yeah.
Porto were a brilliant team. We watched them last year in the Champions League against Arsenal. They were tenacious.
By the way, they come up with novel solutions, or at least in the Champions League from what I saw.
That Pepe dagger's going to work. It's going to score a crashing header. Run off kissing the badge. Can't wait. Brentford at home. Thomas Frank started really well to the season.
Yeah. 3 goals in a minute.
Yeah. I wanted to speak about this actually. This is in the extra bits at the end, but we'll throw it in now. There's sort of this thing going about. There's joke that that Brentford kind of take advantage of all the set pieces. They exploited dead goalkeeper kicks against Manchester City at home. Yeah. They're corner kick champions. They're long throw champions. But most recently, they have scored in the last 3 games in the first minute of each one.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a feeling that Thomas Frank has cracked the code for a kick-off glitch. I thought it only really existed.
He gave credit. I can't remember the guy's name, but he gave credit to a specific guy. He said it's not me.
Does Brentford have like a coach for every phase of play? I reckon they've got like a water break coach or something. Like,
by the way,
someone
the way football's going, it will be. Yeah. That will be the case.
I was actually thinking the other day. I think it's pretty mad how no one's gone back to long throws. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was reading a Pep Linder's book, Intensity, and they hired a throwing coach to deal with how
Follow him on LinkedIn.
He's great on LinkedIn. He's great on LinkedIn. But they had a throwing coach that basically told them how to retain the ball when they throw it in play, and defensive throw-in so they can press high and get it back. And I think they went from retaining 60% of the throw-ins to 92%. Yeah. Which is crazy. The margins you can get. We've seen Arsenal obviously do it with corners.
I did some throw-in analysis. By the way, I think it's the nerdiest sentence I'll ever say.
Throw-in analysis.
It's so nerdy. But prior to it was the Liverpool Real Madrid final, the one that Real Madrid won. I think they won 1-0.
Vinicius, yeah.
Yeah. And what I noted about Liverpool at that time was the fact that if you can manufacture a switch of play against them when you've got your own throw-in, the other side is so underloaded because they try and get you in. Yeah. And the sort of way to do that was, I think, a throw and then a first-time switch after they played that initial bounce back. And the way that they scored, if you actually go back and watch the game, it was from a throw-in. They manufacture the switch, they build on that side, and then they get that cross in. Yeah. So the fine margins,
it's marginal gains, isn't it?
It's literally. I think in a sport where you're like one goal is enough to win you the game. In basketball, you've got to score how many times?
Yeah.
But in football, it's one goal can win you a game. So
how you get the goal is not really a problem.
Every set piece should be maximised. It's like underutilised.
I think Thomas Frank and Brentford are kind of that club. Also on top of Brentford's kick-off glitching, Bryan Mbeumo's now got 48 goals and assists in 101 Premier League games, he's like one of the most overlooked, underrated players I know.
I said he could have moved to a team like City or any Champions League.
I think a goal involvement every other game for Brentford in the Premier League is like, when you've got over 100 games, he's ridiculous. Like that is not even...
I think I've said this for years, I think he plays better without Tony. Yeah. This is not to detract from Tony's quality. I think they're both brilliant players. But Mbeumo has got the ability to play on the wing, got the ability to play down the middle, can do it against the block, can do it in transition, set piece threats, physical. A lot of people have seen links to him to Liverpool and things like that.
Yeah, I've seen that for Salah.
Yeah, and I think sort of in a similar fashion.
It's a very Liverpool signing.
Yeah, and it does remind me of sort of pre-Liverpool Salah in a way.
Yeah. Right, to move on, we're going to move on to Arsenal against Leicester, which they won 4-2, but the scoreline doesn't really tell everything about the game. It was 2-2 up until the 95th minute. Yeah. But this is the second most expected goals created in the Premier League this season.
Because you wrote the stat.
Look at the second above the... I just wrote most and then put like second over the top. But in this game, I watched this game, Bukayo Saka is becoming a bit of... not a problem, but like...
The rest of the league is a problem.
Yeah, for the rest of the league. Bukayo Saka's the first player to create 8+ chances and complete 8+ dribbles in the Premier League this decade.
What?
This decade.
Wow. 8?
Think of the players who've been in the league. Eden Hazard's been in the league in that time. That is ridiculous. It's Salah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I actually think Saka gets underrated because his role... It facilitates the team massively, but he's not.
He's like a playmaker now, don't you think?
I think he's like like almost in the way that sort of someone like De Bruyne. Yeah. I mean, they both chip in with goals and things, but you've got a player who is put on the flank. He can rotate inside, obviously. Yeah. But he's put on the flank, 2v1 often. Yeah. And he's still creating like passes.
I thought last season he was very Salah-like. He was very much driving inside. I think this season, he would have been the first player in Premier League history to have assisted in each of his first 6 Premier League games, but the corner assist got taken off him because there was a deflection before the goal. Fine. But he would have been the first player to have 6 assists on the bounce at the start of the season in history, which is crazy. And I do think it's a testament to the kind of player he's become this season, because I think he's taking on so much more of a playmaking load. Yeah. And especially now that Martin Odegaard's out with an injury, he's kind of stepping up and being the killer ball player. I always thought he was Arsenal's game winner, and I still think he's got potential to, well, not potential,
I
can
think
win the games.
Could sort of play as inside,
as a direct
right,
goal threat. But I think this season I've seen like a different side to him, which is almost like selfless. Yeah, he's Arsenal's man. Yeah, like he's the star boy kind of thing. Yeah. But I'm looking at a player who's kind of not sacrificing output, but he's kind of doing everything for Arsenal whenever they need it, kind of thing. Yeah. And if he's not scoring, obviously others are chipping in with goals. Mads Manson, the Leicester City goalkeeper, tied the record for Premier League saves made in a game that was set by David De Gea against Arsenal again in 2017. The famous he could save the Titanic game. Which is wow. I actually kind of wanted to tweet this, but I didn't want to. But I think it's very rich that people kind of were negative about Arteta in terms of the way they set up against Manchester City, and then they go and put up 37 shots against Leicester City and score 4 goals, and then everyone kind of doesn't talk about them being a relentless attacking team. Yeah, I think
it's just opposition based, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess
you're expecting like rationality.
I know
like,
off social media. I know,
users.
But I didn't agree. I don't think we either both agreed with the kind of discourse that was from the City game, expecting them to come out and try and play. Manchester United tried to play with 10 men in the second half against Spurs, and they conceded 2. So don't do that. So I just think I think it would have been really naive. Anyway, that conversation's gone. But I thought in this game, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the full nighter. But they were relentless, and they deserved to win. I think Calafiori's a lucky boy. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but that was that was really, really suspect. James Justin with probably one of the craziest technical goals I've ever seen.
I can't remember. He scored like 2 goals off like 0.09 XG.
No, he was close to getting into the England setup, I think 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then he got
injuries.
I think he got back-to-back injuries, and then I didn't really see him last season for Maresca, and then I think he come into the fold like with like a month left of the season.
Yeah.
And he's kicked on, and I'm really happy to see it. The one thing that I absolutely love is watching players come back from like injuries that are like 8 months, and they just come back and they smash it.
Yeah.
Florian Wirtz is probably the best case of this, becoming like one of the best players in the world after having an ACL.
Mental, innit?
Doesn't really make any sense, but
just on Arsenal quickly, I think I caught a fair bit of this game. I think what we've seen from Arteta and Arsenal in particular this season is, people have talked about sort of positional play being fairly rigid. I think what we've seen from Arteta's Arsenal is the fluidity that you can get from a quote-unquote positional side. And I know that, the coaching staff and I know Arteta are aware of non-positional principles.
You think they've gone to like a different...
Well, yeah, I think...
Seeing it against Atalanta, I really wanted to...
Yeah. I think Atalanta, it was sort of because they're playing against a man-to-man system, they're doing that to escape the pressure.
Yeah.
But against sort of like a team like Leicester that they're sort of used to facing similar systems.
Yeah.
Calafiori and Timber, they're facilitating rotations between Rice, Martinelli.
They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, and the sort of the structure's similar, but you're getting Declan Rice sometimes in left centre-back zones, Calafiori sometimes in left attacking midfield zones, and
against City, against City for Calafiori,
exactly.
like them where the players are arriving. I've actually got something here that Timber created the most chances with an assist by a defender since 16-17, and the only person to have done it as a defender to tie him is Trent, and he's done it twice. So Arsenal's defenders, that's 7 by the way, 7 created. So Timber's created 7 chances with an assist. I think one thing, what you just touched on there, we've seen it a lot against Atalanta, but I think Arsenal are kind of evolving to become a team that's more reliant on the individual quality that they've got. And I think Arteta is basically asking more of the players to think on the feet themselves. We've gone from seeing kind of a strict positional play approach with like Zinchenko in midfield and kind of putting boundaries around players and not really having them cross over into certain zones and positions. But now, as Umir's just said, we've kind of seen a free roaming Arsenal that kind of lets players do exactly what they want. And Calafiori...
I still think the structure is...
It's a bit it's rigid-ish.
Like the structure's still there. You've got sort of players occupying the same lines as they were, but
I think when
the
they're
rotation,
on the ball, it's like what happens off the ball when someone stood there on the ball. Just what's happening in front of them. It's like a bit whoa. Where's Calafiori going?
Yeah, like Calafiori will come inside. Their fullback will think, okay, do I need to come inside now? Then Declan Rice is suddenly pushing on here. Martinelli's running the middle.
I think it's scary for the rest of the league if the Arsenal can keep creating chances to this level and actually get the individual quality to work and to score goals and to get them to produce. If they can play in this way and Arsenal can have them producing goals, scoring goals, conceding less goals, then just improving on the player quality each year with the young core they've got is a really scary prospect because they're
basically playing in this way so they can get all of their players in their best zones. Calafiori's got a great shot on him, so get him inside, sort of in that pocket, and Martinelli, get him inside. Declan Rice, great at carrying, play him a little bit deeper. You're working to get all your best players in their best zones based on the situation of the game, and it's really interesting.
Moving on to the second to last game is Chelsea versus Brighton. Chelsea 4-2. There's obviously going to be one player we're going to speak about, so I'm going to read off a couple stats. Cole Palmer is now the first player to score 4 in one half of a Premier League game. Palmer's 3 Premier League hat-tricks is the joint most out of any player in the competition for Chelsea, joining up with Lampard, Drogba and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. And he's now got more hat-tricks than Saka and Foden combined in the Prem.
Wow.
And he's only really had like 1 and 2 months worth of Premier League. So it's just absolutely crazy. I don't know. I know you're a City fan and you watched him for years. I think he's absolutely ridiculous. One of the things that kind of makes me think that he's a cut above is players who score and assist on this level.
Yeah.
I know Salah gets this. Salah got kind of beat with this treatment a lot. Harry Kane sort of gets it now. Bruno Fernandes used to get it. When people, they call it stat padding. So like people who, he's just scoring tap-ins, he's scoring... he's
scoring the
he's
third
assisted,
and fourth.
yeah, he's scoring he's assisting someone on the halfway line there, running through the team, and that's his assist. Cole Palmer is he's scoring and assisting goals like on a freakish level, and like the actual quality of the action is ridiculous.
Yeah, he's just creating things out of.
He scored a free kick from 40 yards. He doesn't touch free kicks.
I think he had 2 goals. Around them in training.
I think he had 2 goals disallowed on top of the 4 goals he scored, and he missed a sitter in the second half.
He's so good.
And he fed Jackson about 4 clean through balls for 1v1s that he didn't
ridiculous sort of looping.
Yeah, I was just like, this is a guy that's not just, he's getting goals and assists, and this is really weird for me to say. He's getting goals and assists, but he's also playing well.
Yeah.
Like, he's playing, do you know what I mean? Like, if he didn't get the goals and he didn't get the assist, you still look at him and go, oh, great player.
Yeah.
Great player.
So even last season, like, he was brilliant, but you could say, look, he was getting penalties and that's pushing up his numbers a little bit. But now he's, I don't know how many, like, the penalties aren't making up a big bulk of those 4 goals. You know what I mean?
I don't think any player has got more goals and assists since the start of the Premier League last season than Cole Palmer. Which is Erling Haaland's in the league.
Yeah.
Like Erling Haaland's actually in the league. Yeah. So is Mo Salah, and he's got.
Although Erling Haaland, a little bit of an injury last season.
Yeah, a little bit of a hiccup. But to be fair, there's not really much you can say about Cole Palmer. I think he's a terrific player. I think he's probably my favourite ilk of winger, sort of centre midfield. Yeah. Long legs. Not extremely fast, but so good at running with the ball. Yeah. So good at manipulating the ball. So good at dodging pressure. His volume on the ball. His variety on the ball. Yeah. Last season under Poch, because Chelsea were struggling to break through the midfield, he was dropping into midfield sometimes, and he was pinging these cross-field balls without even looking. And I was like, he can do anything.
In his first couple of games for the seniors, I said he can easily play right centre midfield.
Yeah, he could. I actually think his best position's inside the pitch. Yeah. I said this before.
I think, even like maybe he should be arriving from the wing into the inside, but when he's in those inside zones, he's unreal. And I think one thing that I mentioned about Maresca, just to reflect on Palmer a little bit, is last season Pochettino, I thought he got the best out of Palmer because he really empowered him. He gave him the freedom, and maybe that was born a little bit out of a lack of solutions from other players, etc. But oftentimes, we're seeing managers who play a very rigid system and try and fit players into that. What Pochettino did last season was, for all his sort of shortcomings, the thing that he did really well was find certain players and give them a role that express their individuality. Yeah. Maresca, I think a lot of people had concerns that he was going to be fairly rigid.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be.
Yeah, like a very strict positional, try and dominate the ball high up all the time kind of thing. But as we saw against Brighton, and in sort of the last few games as well, he's not afraid to play in a slightly more direct counter-attacking fashion. And 2, he's given Palmer that individuality and that freedom to express that quality.
Within a structure.
And when you compare that to players like Foden or Saka, for example, look, perhaps if Palmer was in a system that was a little bit more strict, having less of the ball, he wouldn't be able to showcase that quality. But I think he's in a really nice system and a situation that allows him to show off that kind of. Yeah,
I will say I've been pleasantly surprised by Maresca. I did think when he come in, I did think he was going to do better than Poch. I will say that. I made a really good piece on him for the Over. But I thought he was going to do really well. I kind of liked his coaching background, and I thought with the players that Chelsea had, Palmer being pretty much the main one, I thought with his background in coaching and what he was, and then I remember watching lots of his interviews for Leicester. He's a no-nonsense manager, but he's gone above what I actually thought he was going to do, and I never thought he was going to adapt to the way he has.
I actually think his what he's been less good at, or what Chelsea have been less good at, are the things that people thought that they would be brilliant. Sort of the press is still not perfect.
I think I said that if Chelsea fans really like rigid possession-based football, you'll love him. But now when I watch Chelsea, it's a lot more like, wow, this is a different team.
It's almost similar-ish to Pochettino, but like trying to hone in on those structures.
Getting players. Yeah. One final thing on the Chelsea game, we'll only spend a couple of minutes on this because this might hurt me. Is Jadon Sancho back?
I think he's in an environment that suits him a lot more than it did at United. But I think United, sorry to cut you off there, like you've got to play like Marcus Rashford. I've always thought that this is never made any sense to me. You've got to play like Marcus Rashford on that left wing, and ideally as sort of a boyhood academy graduate who's a brilliant footballer at his best, and he's obviously a left winger. And then you sign Jadon Sancho,
it makes no
who's
sense.
like not the fastest.
No.
He requires loads of touches, like an overlap play, underlap play, but he connects the play.
Yeah.
And he's a right-footed player. Who you want on the left side.
I was so shocked. So we had Solskjaer on there.
Yeah.
And I was so shocked. He literally said, like, when Sancho come up to him, when he signed him, he arrived at the training ground, and Sancho said to Solskjaer, he was like, I want to play on the left wing.
But that's his position.
But I was like, how?
But by the way, had that conversation before you get
I was like, but I was like, how have we got to this point?
Yeah.
So we've just spent 80 million on him. He's come to Manchester United. Our
he
best
plays
player at the time,
Yeah.
but outside of Bruno Fernandes, was playing on the left wing.
Yeah.
He's come up to the manager and gone, oh, boss, I want to play on the left wing.
Yeah. You know, this is why I wonder why we never saw him as like a left 10, like a left 8.
Well, Erik Ten Hag tried him at 10. I remember.
And by the way, he was better
good,
there than he was.
He played good there. I will say, when he went to Chelsea, I did think he was going to do better than United, because I don't think he could have got much worse. Yeah. But I do think the players around him think he's Joe Shields at Chelsea. Yeah. So if you don't know, basically Joe Shields is a former academy director,
ex-Man City and then
ex-Man City and ex-Southampton, and basically he was the main guy who kind of enticed Jadon Sancho to go to Chelsea. He's obviously a Chelsea fan, Jadon Sancho, but he was the guy who kind of gave him the phone call, enticed him to come to Chelsea to work with a project. And I can't say that it doesn't suit him. I think the demographic of the squad, the age of the squad, and the kind of players that he's playing on the pitch around kind of suit him better. Yeah. I feel like him, Jackson, Palmer kind of get on a lot better in terms of synergy and kind of the Noni Madueke, like the players in the forward line who he kind of mixes with in the attack. I think they suit him better in terms of like getting on and chemistry and synergy and team bonding and all that.
He's also coming from a position of being, fairly underwhelming at United. Yeah. So now he's almost the
expectations
the underdog.
are just so low.
So people are rooting for him. The fan base at Chelsea, they don't have that same expectation. So if he puts in a 7 out of 10 game, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're coming from Dortmund, you're valued at 100 odd million or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you put in a 7 out of 10 performance, just scrutinised. Every action is scrutinised. And United have this tendency, if you're not a big personality who can, weather that storm a little bit, you might succumb to that a little bit.
I didn't think he was gonna turn it around at Manchester United, but I'm happy for him. So, well done, Sancho. Nice one, mate. I know. Don't get
You're just waiting for the
rubbing salt in my wounds. Last game that we're going to cover is Newcastle 1, Manchester City 1. Yeah. Key standout in this game was Trippier played one half with 2 different boots on. But apart from that, I thought this was one of City's worser games.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to say it was. I'm not going to say it was an awful performance. I thought it was.
I thought, well, like all things considered, it was all right.
Yeah, like the result wasn't bad. St James's Park is an incredibly hard place to go. Gundogan probably should have done better with a couple of chances.
Yeah, but you didn't have a pre-season. He's still finding his sharpness, kind of thing.
But there's a couple things I do want to touch on in this game. The record, I think it's really easy to go straight in on the Rodri stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's really easy because I don't think you really lacked control in the game. I don't think.
Yeah, there was a portion in the second half.
I don't think it was really a Rodri missing kind of.
Yeah,
the reason why you lost kind of thing.
I would say we didn't lack control, but I think Pep prioritised control, so we lacked a bit of that penetration.
Yeah, so you tried to get the ball too much because of him.
Yeah.
You've played 174 games with Rodri, and you've only lost 19 of them games. You've played 22 games without Rodri, and you've lost 8 of them games. That is crazy.
Yeah.
You've almost lost half the games in 150 less with and without him. That is something. The one thing that's actually quite apparent on here is you drew that game, and you've only drawn without Rodri once.
Oh, really?
Which is weird.
That's bizarre. Was that Premier League or all?
Yeah, I think might be all. No, it's Premier League. Premier League, yeah. That's since this is since the start of the 1920 season.
That's ridiculous.
So just when he started to come into the fold, kind of thing. But yeah, that's crazy. Gordon is me. I know me and you both love Anthony Gordon, and I thought his interview video of that was just like mesmerising in terms of like how he does the visualisation.
He was always destined for the top.
I
never from Everton days.
I never thought I was gonna like a Scouse lad so much, to be honest. Who doesn't play for my club? It's like it feels a bit weird, but. Gordon against the Big Six has scored 7 in his last 8 at home, which is crazy, especially when he won the pen.
Yeah, the way he plays it, I don't know. he's almost the perfect like.
He kind of does everything. He kind of does everything.
He's very much like old school Manchester United.
Yeah, he's like a 4-4-2 winger.
Yeah.
He kind of. Yeah.
But he can do. I mean, he played down the middle for large parts of the game against City.
He played down the middle for England in the under-21 Euros, and he won the player of the tournament. So it's clearly a very, really very good player, versatile player. He's got 15 goals and assists against the Big Six in the Premier League in his career, which is the same amount as Gareth Bale in the Prem.
Wow.
Which is just that's just ridiculous. I don't really know.
I've always said like he's a player who. And this is when he was at Everton. I said, look, I think Chelsea were linked with him at one point.
Everyone was like, you're not paying 40 million for him.
Yeah, and I was like, pay him in, because he weren't scoring that many goals at the time. But he's popping up in the right positions.
Yeah.
All the underlying things were there at that point, and like he'll have a brilliant career just because of the way that.
Did you think it was a penalty? I'm going to be honest right now. I didn't think it was a penalty. I still don't think it's a penalty. I thought the second foul with Joelinton and Walker probably was more of a pen.
Yeah.
But because they give the first one as a pen. I think the one thing that players are doing now, and it's completely fine because like it's been this way for decades and decades, and not going to change it. You have a striker runs through 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper.
Just leave your legs in.
You just leave your legs. Just bad touch. Take a bad touch. Yeah. So just kick it out your feet. If that keeper goes scram, which he's going to do, because if the ball's at your feet, he's going to try and shut the ball down.
Yeah.
It's been happening for ages, but I think it's smart. Anthony Gordon is one of the best penalty winners in the Premier League. Full stop. I think he's won the most in
season and a half.
I think he won. I want to say he won about 8 last season. 8, 9. Because I think his fantasy assists, which is basically assists including penalties, won. I think his fantasy assists was like 18.
Him and Raheem Sterling.
Yeah, Raheem Sterling used to top them charts, and I think he used to do the thing all the time with the keeper.
Yeah.
But I think, he's a great player. I didn't think it was a penalty. I'm not gonna lie.
You're giving them the opportunity to make a decision. Like, I don't know. I think we're debating margins there. The fact that the ball got through in the first instance is what I got an issue with. Like, that annoyed me more than anything else.
That's a good point. We're done with the games, but we have got 3 questions.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with this one. This one's a bit of a weird one because off the top of my head, I can't actually think of a standout in this. But the best transfers so far this season, player-wise.
Savinho, as a Manchester City fan, like I mentioned Savinho first of all. He obviously didn't start the game against Newcastle.
No.
When he came on, brilliant. I think every game that I've seen him in, he brings this sort of transitional quality we've not always had. Ability to go inside, outside, play 2v1. Like, I think final actions are almost there. He's been a little bit hard done by in that sense, but he's even played on the left. Like, I think he's a brilliant player. And for a player to come into Manchester City side and hit it right away, it's not super common.
No.
So I think Savinho's certainly up there for me.
I'm trying to. There wasn't. Everyone said this at the time, but there wasn't really like a big, wow kind of factor in terms of the. I think. Do you know what? I will say this. I think my side of the season's probably Smith Rowe. So far.
Smith Rowe's been.
I watched Fulham. I watched Fulham. I think 2 weeks ago, and everything just went through him. And it was like everything. He looked like the player that we all saw for Arsenal.
Yeah.
But like the physical question marks, they didn't really seem too.
I always wonder why he didn't get more game time.
And I think when they signed him for the money they signed him for, I think there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders. But I think Fulham have done really well this season.
Yeah.
And I think him and Ezra's been really good. Adama Traore has been good. Iwobi's had a little bit of a start playing again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Emile Smith-Rowe has been. If you look at probably the players that have been bought for the big money, I think Savinho's been really good.
Yeah.
But
Liam Delap, someone I want to mention.
Yeah, Liam Delap is probably up there for the fee. I think it was £12 million.
Yeah, people didn't really expect him to hit off like that, but
I think 3 goals, newly promoted side, 6 games in.
I think even against Manchester City, they lost. But I was really impressed the way he was sort of like DS is no easy feat, and showed for the ball often, made it physical, good out ball, ability to shift his feet, get a shot away. Like he's really impressed me. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think the point about big money signings, obviously Onana, Villa.
I think Villa have. They were all right. I'm not gonna touch fully on the Ipswich one. I think Villa have probably got some of the strongest squad depth in the league.
I think
I was looking at their bench midweek or the week before, and I was like, whoa,
yeah,
scary.
It's interesting how they're using the team as well. Like sort of playing on that transitional quality. I think, like we mentioned for Ten Hag a little bit, it's good to adapt your quality to the players that you have, but keeping that general philosophy the same. And they've got like a cohesion between their games now, which is really impressive.
Next question is probably a player or coach who's grown on you this season. Now, I would actually say I was already a big fan, but I think mine is probably Maresca.
Yeah,
I think so. Not grown on me. I did think he was a bit arrogant at first. I thought he was a guy in the press conferences who kind of said a lot, demanded a lot. He was very stern.
Yeah.
I kind of knew that from the Leicester press conferences. But he actually seems to be galvanising a young core a lot better than Pochettino did at the time.
Yeah.
And Pochettino was like obviously he worked in youth football as well, but I think he's sort of harmonising a lot better and a lot simpler, it seems. Even though his methods aren't exactly like clear cut, like perfect. Like obviously there's still an overloaded training camp. There's still bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
There's still people training abroad in different stuff. But I think in terms of doing his job, I think he's surprised me in the way that he's approached it. Not surprised me in the way he's performing in terms of results, but definitely surprised me in terms of giving me a different kind of side to him as a manager I didn't think he had.
Yeah.
So I probably would say Maresca for that.
I might go player, because the only one that's jumping out to me now is Gravenberch on the slot. Like, I think there were question marks when he first joined Liverpool about sort of his quality and things. But
it's a lot of lazy comments, weren't they? They were all like, oh, he don't run kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think obviously it needs a little bit of time in general.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way that people have spoken about Gravenberch before he was at Liverpool was to hold him in this really high regard. He's a player with really interesting sort of physical profile, the ability to turn under pressure, and that technical quality to trap the ball but then carry it. And he's playing really brilliant passes from deep in those defensive midfield areas. Like, to not make a signing from DM, and I think Liverpool are top of the league.
Yeah, and for him to just
slot
in nice and easy.
And I think, just that general quality in his game, I think...
I was quite surprised. I had a look, I was doing some research, and he played, I think, like 62% of his minutes in the 21-22 season for Ajax as in a deeper position, so in a double pivot or as the six, whichever one you want to look at it. And I just thought it was kind of strange that he just never really got a chance there. Like early on. I'm not going to say it was obvious because no one was thinking it before Slot did it. I'm not going to say it was obvious, but I kind of think Liverpool were missing the long legs of Fabinho, the cool head in there and the ball. They were missing physical profile, good jeweler, good header. They were kind of missing the Fabinho aspect of that. And when you look at the squad, you just go...
We did it with the Kanji.
Yeah, that's what... So it felt not simple. I'm not going to say simple because it took a lot of cojones to actually
But like in retrospect, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but in retrospect, you kind of look at the player he is and you go, wow, he's quality.
It's a little bit like Barkley. I think a lot of players, you got number 10s who in the small spaces, like they're good, but there's less time and space to show your quality. So now you're in sort of the pivot, you got time and space to show that quality, and you look even better.
I'm not going to lie. If you would have asked me my opinion on Gravenberch in the summer before he played a game under Slot, I'd have been like... He's not getting a sniff at Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy for him. Yeah, I'm really happy for him. He does remind me a bit on the dribble. This is just on the dribble in the way he uses his arms to push people out of the way. He does remind me a bit of like a Pogba.
Yeah, and that's what that leggy.
The leggy dribbling. I love that, mate.
Yeah.
Find me a midfielder who runs like that. Wow. He runs so close.
Might be the complete opposite.
We've got
a little jeweler and
try and complete the pass first. And the last one, bit of a harsh one this to finish on.
Yeah.
The first manager who you think's going to be sacked.
I might let you answer this one.
Nah, I don't want to answer this one. Do you know what? I will say, I'm going to sit on the fence and I'm going to go Gary O'Neill.
Do you believe that in your heart of hearts?
No. Who
looks the most likely at this point? I mean, it probably Ten Hag. I would say the hierarchy above him are probably reluctant to do so. Yeah. So I think he'll get time.
I think
unless it all goes wrong.
I think it's quite worrying. The only reason why I think they might let him go, the only reason, and I'm not sure why I think this because they didn't do this in the summer, but Thomas Tuchel, he just kind of seems like. If they want someone who's just going to come in and just not guarantee results, I'm not going to say that, but guarantee that you've got a current good coach in terms of Europe, then it just kind of seems like it's a straightforward appointment. I
don't know if that's the sort of coach that they go for.
No,
I think they want somebody who's a little bit more
Southgate.
No, I don't know. I don't think people would be happy with that, to be honest. I think there's always been rumours.
That wouldn't happen. No. When it was first coming out.
Yeah, no. I think United just want somebody who's a little bit more agreeable and somebody who.
Do you think they want a yes man?
Not entirely, but I think like for all top teams, if there's like an agreement between the head coach and then the board above them, that's when you've got the most success. We've seen it at City, we've seen it at Arsenal.
Because I think there's a clear like disparity in terms of what the transfers are happening and what Erik ten Hag wants to happen. It's like he wanted Amrabat instead of Ugarte, and he got Ugarte, and now Amrabat's gone to Fenerbahce. And I just think that I'm not going to say he struggles too much with transfers, because I do think he's seen a new board coming in and he's kind of gone okay. But I do think the board would like someone to be a bit more.
Well, ultimately, you need to sign players that are like your team players. Does that make sense? We find like Manchester City kind of players.
Yeah. They don't have any like tagline or label on them kind of thing.
Yeah.
I will say this as well. Tottenham have now got Ange Postecoglou, and if you don't know, Tottenham interviewed Erik ten Hag way before Manchester United, and they turned him down because of lack of charisma.
Which, by the way, I think is a very important point.
Very important, and I think just going off the question, I think this is probably a manager as a fan. If you want to really try and get behind, even after a big result, the manager has to say the things that the fans want to hear, and I think he's not the best at doing that.
And by the way, I feel not sorry for him in that sense, but I feel like sometimes, especially with foreign managers, they're a little bit hard done by when they're managing not in their
when they're under pressure.
Well, Unai Emery, when he first came in at Arsenal, he was
used to butcher everything,
and basically the sort of the threads on social media, etc. They were cooking him for just speaking in his foreign tongue.
I do.
And like in their mother tongue, like in their home countries, they're probably the most charismatic people ever.
That's a good point.
I feel bad for them in that sense, you know.
But no, it's a good place to leave it. It's a sad day for me. It's not a great day for you either, is it? It's just,
Do you know what I mean? I'm glad we played first though. And then
I know. At least it gets easier next week. We've got Villa away. Who have you got?
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Oh no, you've got Southampton at home. You'll be all right.
Hopefully. Premier League, you never know. But we should be winning that one.
Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back next week with everything Premier League.